What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, what really moved it, and what shorts did. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi went down slightly today, 1.27%, nothing overly crazy. 21.35 the low, 22.74 the high. So new 52-week high was hit today, despite having somewhat lower volume. So 59 million shares being traded, 74 is the average. Most of that volume did actually occur within the first 1 hour of the trading day when you had that nice spike up. Unfortunately, did hit a key resistance level and consolidated. So I'll go over that in a second. But as far as macro data points, we did have building permits starts both coming in better than anticipated, so that was always kind of a fear leading into this for today. And then we also did have the Michigan consumer sentiment. So earlier this week we did have PPI, which came in better than anticipated, CPI, which was more rather negative. So this was, I think, the tiding point, but it did come in at 61.8, forecast of 60.5, so pretty good for that. Because of all of this data, it did boost the likelihood of a September 17th cut of 25 basis points. So ultimately now there's a 58% likelihood of that occurring, and a small chance of a 50, so 2.7%. Most likely that won't come to fruition, but nonetheless still a small chance there. Specific to SoFi, no news, no SEC filings or anything like that. The only other thing that kind of came out on a macro standpoint, but I feel like the market largely brushed under the rug, was Trump just kind of going back and forth about Europe tariffs and potentially them being increased. So not necessarily the best, but I feel like the market kind of just turns a blind eye now to a lot of things that Trump states, unless it's like, hey, we placed this certain percentage, blah, blah, blah. Just so I think people are kind of tuning out a lot of the noise. As far as what shorts did, this whole week has been very odd, most of which they actually were returning. Today they did increase roughly 6,000 shares, so small amount. So this has been the most tame that they've been since I've pretty much started covering SoFi for like almost 2 years ago. 14.13% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 153 million shares overall are being shorted. So definitely interesting. So maybe you are going to be seeing some mitigating risk, them kind of returning some more leading into their upcoming earnings. Aside from that, speaking of kind of earnings, there was no new ratings that did come out. A lot over the last week and a half, but nothing new as far as today. This one, it shows, like, I see some articles talking about this one that came out after hours yesterday from 𝗪𝗧𝗪, 22% success rating, but still that was posted yesterday, so I feel like it was already kind of digested in the stock price. Looking at the options today, 60 million in calls, 13 million in puts, 41% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. And again, most of that did occur in the first roughly about 2 hours of the trading day. So once it did bounce off of that kind of resistance level, then I think people were just anticipating some consolidation. When it comes to today though, with today being Friday, it was able to close above the 2150, so 2150 and below, although strike prices are in the money. And that does work out to be a grand total of 158,000 options, most of which could already be covered, because I think market makers at this stage would have already covered the 12, 13, and a lot of the kind of lower strike prices. And so far after hours on the dark pool, we haven't really seen any crazy transactions. We see 1.1, 4.6, so market makers haven't started to cover, so that could make for a very interesting Monday, no different than the last 3 weeks. So that could really kickstart some nice push higher going into next week. Stay tuned for my video where I go over some expectations on what could cause volatility and so forth. But even looking on the secondary market, first thing, you did see that nice string of buying, a lot of big transactions, 13.2, 1.8. So that's what really pushed it to the 52-week high for today. And then randomly, you just had a lot of selling. So a lot of institutions started to sell. And again, as I mentioned, I think that had more to do with the technicals rather than anything. So with it closing at 2181, it landed exactly on this R1. So 2181 is going to be that key pivot. 2263 is going to be that next strong target / resistance. And that's kind of what it did bounce off of. Generally, it kind of had a small push higher above that, but this is going to be that key resistance to really watch for going into next week. Side note, I am looking at the 4-hour chart, but if we pop over to that 1-day chart, this is where that 2257, so that general area is a massive deal for SoFi, because that is kind of the hop, skip, and a jump to pretty much the 28, so between that $25 and $28 range. So yeah, big things are coming. So I'm rather surprised the fact that shorts didn't even do anything. So when it was actually spiking, shorts had nothing to do with this downtrend. They didn't try to kill the momentum, because even looking at the teal line right here, they just sat back and they relaxed. And honestly, they did that this whole week. So this week was very abnormal. I don't know if whoever's behind this, multiple different entities, just took vacation or something like that, but definitely this week was rather odd. But aside from that, on the technicals, that was kind of the biggest thing that caused SoFi to consolidate. Aside from all that though, no new news or anything like that really worthwhile to bring up. On a technical standpoint, still looking pretty a-okay above all the key pivotal moving averages. One thing to take note of though is 2147 is that ALMA, so that could signal a little bit more consolidation. But still, I think really things have to go crazy next week. And with that amount of options in the money, so that's already going to pretty much lay the foundation for a nice push higher first thing. So I don't really see that crazy of a downside, but anything is possible right now. But one thing to take note of though is because of over the last couple trading days, all the volatility, stochastic RSI is breaking off of that overbought status. So somewhat still on the high end. So if it does get back to, let's say, that kind of low 21 or even $20 range, that is where, in my opinion, the kind of stochastic RSI will be reset. So something to keep in mind as well. But I think overall for the week, SoFi did do absolutely amazing, multiple new 52-week highs. And so over the last 5 days, it did go up 5%. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Did you buy today? Did you lock in profits? What's your kind of general thoughts on just the broader market? And do you believe that we will be having a 25 basis point cut at the bare minimum for the September 17th meeting? And of course, I think the whole thing about Powell, if for whatever reason, if Trump is actually quietly working on something behind the scenes to get him fired, then this could easily be a 50 basis point cut. So that would really fuel the broader market like tenfold. So let me know your viewpoint. Hopefully everyone has a good weekend. Stay tuned for the following SoFi videos. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching, and let's all make a lot of money on SoFi.